What's up, y'all? Welcome to Gameonysus Weekly, your one-stop shop for video game news, keeping up with the biggest stories so you don't have to. I am your host, Javier Garcia, and this is episode 4, covering stories like Activision pushing back on diversity hiring practices, Season's toxic studio, GameStop stock going wild, and an Animal Crossing update, which is nice, a little bit calmer than a lot of the other news pieces we have, all that and much more. Starting with Activision resisting diversity hiring push by America's Union. This comes from Lauren Kaori Gurley and Patrick Klepek over at Vice. From the report directly, lawyers from gaming industry giant Activision Blizzard have rejected a proposal that many companies use to diversify their workforces, claiming that a new shareholder proposal submitted by the AFL-CIO is, quote, an unworkable encroachment on the gaming company's ability to compete for new talent, quote, in a highly competitive, fast-moving market, according to a letter obtained by Motherboard. And here are some direct details on what that proposal actually is that they're pushing back on. It is, quote, requiring that the initial pool of candidates from which new employees are hired by the company shall include, but need not be limited to, qualified women and minority candidates. So this rule is not about who you're hiring, it is about interviewing some folks from what is considered a diverse background. And the system's actually modeled after the NFL's Rooney Rule, which if you're familiar with the NFL, you might already know of this rule, but essentially what it is it was launched in 2003 and it required teams to interview at least one non-white minority candidate for coaching jobs. And when the rule first was kind of introduced or getting discussed, a lot of people were kind of pushing back on it. Some people felt, especially for something like coaching, well, we already know who we're going to hire, so we're sort of just wasting this other candidate's time by interviewing them. And then, of course, there are people who are trying to be on the right side of diversity, but also feel that, hey, this is sort of almost patronizing to that one, black coach or minority coach. They know they're only getting interviewed because they're required to be interviewed. So there was definitely some debate on the lead up to the rule and the initial implementation of the rule, but guess what? It actually did end up leading to getting a more diverse coaching staff, which was the whole point of the rule. Because basically what happened is when people finally started talking to these more diverse background candidates, these non-white candidates, they realized, hey, some of these people are actually really qualified and should actually get the job. And that is the whole point. It is a foot in the door. It is not a golden ticket. And there's a whole bunch of details that you can read about in the article, including the pushback of being, oh, you're kind of trying to micromanage us with this policy. And Vice actually spoke to a union organizer with the Campaign to Organize Digital Employees, aka CODE. They talked to Wes McInerney, I may be saying that incorrectly, apologies, about sort of the importance of this, to which they said, it's really hard to attract talented candidates from marginalized and minority communities in games and tech when the only places you're looking to recruit are overwhelmingly white and male. And once people get hired, there's no community for them. They are expected to represent these groups. And that's something I definitely have experienced firsthand as well. A lot of these, and still continue to experience, a lot of the gaming spaces are very white and very male, and often very white and male. So there are so many just different barriers that you're up against when you are from a more quote-unquote diverse background. So, to get pushback on something as simple as making sure that you're always interviewing diverse candidates, like non-white male candidates, is frankly astounding and incredibly upsetting. It is worth noting that in a follow-up with IGN, IGN reported on this, and then Blizzard reached out in response to the Vice reporting to kind of counteract that, saying that it was a mischaracterization of the SEC filing made by the company's attorney. And Blizzard stated that the objections were, quote, rooted in the fact that the AFL-CIO proposal failed to adequately consider how to apply these practices in all countries we operate in. And also this reporting was done by Matt Kim over at IGN. So here is the statement that Blizzard provided as a sort of counter. Activision Blizzard is committed to inclusive hiring practices and to creating a diverse workforce. It is essential to our mission. Vice completely mischaracterized the SEC filing by our outside attorneys. In fact, our hiring practices are rooted in ensuring diversity for all roles. We engage in this aggressively and successfully. Our objection was rooted in the fact that the AFL-CIO proposal failed to adequately consider how to apply these practices in all countries we operate in. Our games have uniquely influenced popular culture and have helped to increase tolerance and inclusion through their connectivity, as well as the heroes we portray in our stories that celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion in so many powerful ways. In order to ensure that our games stay true to our mission to connect and engage the world through epic entertainment, we require that all candidates of all backgrounds, ethnicities, genders, races, and sexual orientations are considered for each and every open role. We aggressively recruit diverse candidates so the workforce provides the inspired creativity required to meet the expectations of our diverse 400 million players across 190 countries. We remain committed to increasing diversity at all levels throughout Activision Blizzard worldwide. So it's sort of up to us to decide to what degree we agree with or believe that. It's sort of just two different sides having different takes. There's Vice's reporting, and then they're like, hey, that's not what we meant. It was literally only about it working in other countries. My sort of pushback with that is, why would it not still matter in other countries? I do realize other countries have different demographics, so I can see how that can affect things, but I feel like it should still be possible, though, to recruit on this requirement. If you only need to interview some folks that aren't just white and aren't just men, how is that not scalable in all areas? That doesn't seem to really make sense to me, so that's my pushback. And also, even if it is of concern, isn't it your job to figure out how to navigate that because you run a company and you claim to be very committed to diversity? I don't know. That is just my takeaway on the situation. And continuing with negative and frankly disappointing stories, we have some excellent reporting over by Rebecca Valentine at GameIndustry.biz. The article is "A Scavenger Studio creative director accused of belittling, screaming at, and groping employees." This is the studio that made the Darwin Project, but almost more notably, it is a studio that is behind Season, which is an upcoming indie game that has been getting a lot of traction. It's one that I have publicly stated is one of my most anticipated games of the year. And there's a lot I can read from this because, frankly, all of it is important in different ways. But I'm going to go ahead and highlight some of the pull quotes because those are also clearly what the author thought would convey the story well or sort of stand out. So we have: someone remarked in front of the group that the main character of Season playing the guitar wasn't realistic because it was too complicated for a woman. And that is a remark that went unchallenged as well. They kind of commented that she should play the ukulele instead because it is more simple, and no one sort of counteracted that. And even going beyond things like sexism, there's lines like, many of those we spoke to felt that they were seen as disposable, that they would be screamed at and degraded if they disagreed with the founder. Sentiments and stories like screaming matches or comments, said one person, they occur in meetings and yelling at people to the point you can hear it from outside the meeting rooms pre-COVID. Post-COVID is even more terrible because everyone is on the call, so now it's exposed to not just people who walk by the meeting room, it's everyone who's connected. And this entire report consists of both current and former employees of that Season studio, saying that Simon Darview's toxic actions were enabled by co-owner Amelia Lamarche. Again, apologies for any pronunciation errors there, but it's just an incredible and moving and upsetting report that I encourage you all to read at length and really just kind of pick apart the ways that stuff can be really, really messed up. So what does this actually mean for Season? Well, Valentine writes, with Darview on board, Season has undergone a considerable shift in focus and scope. Several current employees mentioned that Darview had used the partnership with Sony to force his own ideas onto the game, saying he had promised a number of features to seal the deal, such as a larger world, quests, and objective markers that either weren't planned or had already been scrapped by the team. Now they said the studio is on the hook for them. Quote, now I don't even know what's been announced because it's so different from what we had planned, one person said. I don't even recognize the game. So honestly, not feeling good about Season on a number of levels. I think one, it's really difficult to divorce the art from the artist, especially when the way it's created hurts the artists involved. I think that's the other key point here. And also just based on this, it doesn't sound like a good system for creating a good game. I think if Season ends up being awesome, it is in spite, not because of what's going on at the studio, and that's just really sad. Following up that report, Scavenger Studio did make an official statement, and I will read that statement now. Scavenger Studios wishes to apologize for the harm caused. Allegations such as these are serious, and we are committed to doing better for our employees, our fans, and our partners. Our company had an emergency board of directors meeting to discuss the best course of action moving forward. Effective immediately, Simon Zarvu is indefinitely suspended from all responsibilities within the company and from the board of directors. An external audit firm will conduct an independent workplace assessment and audit of our culture and practices. Daisy Lily Best, currently Director of Operations, is appointed as Chief Operating Officer and will be reporting directly to the Board of Directors for the duration of the audit to ensure complete transparency and accountability. The audit report will be shared in its entirety with the team and presented by Daisy to the board for further actions to be taken. To ensure a transparent, fair, and unbiased process, I offered to temporarily step down from my role as Chief Executive for the duration of the audit, and again, this is from Amelie Lamarche, and I will remain available to support the studio's normal course of business. In the meantime, we ask the community's patience and understanding as we go through this process. The seasoned team has poured their hearts into this project. We have full confidence in their creative direction and will continue to support the amazing work of our talented team. So, better than nothing, I guess, right? It's not enough to make me feel like, oh, it's all gonna be okay. And if all of that was not chaotic enough, we have GameStop stocks going wild. I'll be honest, I put off this story for as long as I could because I don't understand the stock market like most game journalists and content creators who all had to learn the stock market over the last few weeks, and it's been painful. Here is my understanding of it that I think will help create an understanding for you as well. So this was something that was DM'd to me by my brother. It is from Aaron D, who is at Mr. Brown Eyes 2020. I'm not familiar with their background or their work or anything like that. I just think that the thread was a mostly really clear way to kind of break everything down. I won't read it in its entirety, but I will give the main points. At least one hedge fund has gone bankrupt thanks to a group of average Joes on Reddit. By the end of the week, there will be a line of bankruptcies. How did this happen? And they break down the simplicity of stocks. Stock goes up, you make money. Stock goes down, you lose money. But they mention that short selling is the opposite. Short selling makes money when the stock goes down in value. So here is how short selling works. Here's the metaphor that works for me. I have a pen and the pen is worth $10. Isaiah borrows this pen and I'm like, cool, here you go. You gotta get back to me, but you can borrow it for now. He then turns around and sells the pen for $10. He got his $10. The value of the pen decreases. So when he buys the pen again, it's like $5, for instance. And he gives it back to me like, hey, here's your pen back. So now he made a profit off of that pen. Now there is like money that kind of gets back to me, I think, through, I'm not sure what the terminology for it would be, because also this is just a metaphor to explain it. So I do get a little bit money from that whole process as the original pen owner, but mostly that's Isaiah betting that it's going to be worth less. So once he sells it, he pockets some money, and then when he has to get it back, to give back to me, because he still owes me a pen, it is still a profit for him because he paid for less than he originally paid for and sold it for. And that is what the shorting process is like. So essentially, if we bring it back to the actual real world example, these are hedge funds shorting that GameStop stock. That's super hard to say, and profiting off of it. So then Wall Street Bets, a trading investing subreddit, notices going down and that they're shorting the stocks like crazy, betting, and that's why people use the phrase betting that GameStop will go down because that's how they actually make their money from doing that process. Wall Street Bets realized this and told everybody, hey, let's go buy all of those shares that they borrowed, that they have to pay back, and we're not going to sell them unless it's at like a really high number. So basically, going back to like that pen metaphor, it's like if someone else came in and they bought all the pens that were like in the apartment or in the area, so that when Isaiah had to come back and give me my pen, he was forced to buy a really expensive pen, and there go all the profits. He's screwed now because the pen is actually way more expensive than what it was when he originally made money off of it. And really recently, we also had Robinhood then do restrictions on GameStop stock due to the increase in clearinghouse deposit requirements. So they claim that it's not because people were buying the stock, it's because of like this increase, but really it's because people were buying the stock. And that kind of brings in all these other questions of okay, well, what happened to our free market? Like, it seems like y'all, it's kind of set up for some folks to win all the time. So, Tencent acquires majority stake in Don't Starve developer Klai Entertainment. which is also known for games such as Mark of the Ninja, Griftlands, and more. This comes from Adam Bankhurst over at IGN. And Tencent owns like a lot of stuff, and a lot of people don't really like Tencent. So it is worth noting that the studio founder went on the forums and said, quote, "As part of the agreement, Clive retains full autonomy of creative and operations across all aspects of the studio, including projects, talent, and more. And that this acquisition means boring account changes and not stuff like staff changes, project changes, or other operational changes." So hopefully this just means good things for that studio. Like, this is, at the end of the day, a business, so hopefully this business move is beneficial for them. Tencent also acquired a minority stake in Don't Nod. This reporting comes from GameIndustry.biz from Brendan Sinclair, and it is worth noting that this is a minority stake, so it doesn't really have like that kind of move the needle potential impact that a majority stake would have. So this is more of like a fun fact than something to really get too concerned about. And again, hopefully that is good for that studio. I personally really like Don't Nod. I feel like they've made some really good stuff. They've made some just okay stuff, and I'm always looking forward to what they're making next. YouTube is finally getting a clipping feature. This comes from Ryan Gilliam over at Polygon, and this is still in its very early phases. It is in, quote, limited alpha phase, and it's only been rolled out to a small group of creators, but if you're watching on YouTube, what you're seeing is that sort of announcement video that they posted on, I believe, the channel's Creator Insider, and they're showing how the feature works, and you have like this little scissor icon, and it says clip, and you can then clip the video and name it. The clips can be anywhere as short as 5 seconds to as long as 60 seconds, and they play on an endless loop. This is something that in its limited alpha phase is currently limited to just the YouTube Android app or the desktop app, but it looks like the iOS app is coming soon as well. So we'll see how long it takes for this to actually be rolled out and widespread. But yeah, this seems cool. It's a feature that Twitch has had for a long time, and it seems like a nice, convenient way to potentially share out content and also break out content from YouTube. I think too, especially for the gaming space, which we're seeing, if you're watching on YouTube, a clip of that now where someone's live streaming, and then people can then clip out those moments of the stream and highlight them the same way you would do on Twitch. So it makes sense if YouTube is trying to be competitive in that live streaming market to be able to take long-form content and quickly turn it into short-form content. Tesla's new Model S can play Cyberpunk 2077 and The Witcher 3, and it's supposedly on par with today's newest consoles, which that doesn't sound right, even as I read it. This comes over from Connor Sheridan over at Games Radar, and of course this is only to be used, like the gaming feature in Tesla is only for passengers or if you're in a parked car. And we've seen a lot of games come to Tesla, which sounds weird as if it's like a gaming platform. So this, sort of falls in line with that. I actually do want a Tesla, and I'm so excited to game on this Tesla because I think it's like the weirdest place to game. So like, hell yeah. Sort of adding a brief news section to the show, awards and accolades, which won't get used too often, but as it's relevant, we'll kind of have these all lumped together. Also from Games Radar by Heather Wald, The Last of Us 2 overtakes The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt to become the most awarded game ever. This is calculated by GameAwards.net that sort of keeps track of all these different awards that get distributed throughout the year. And The Last of Us 2 has gotten 261 awards in 2020, according to that tracker. And then compare that to The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which got 260 awards in 2015. I also want to shout out Chris Game Over Cholo over on Patreon, who brought this story to my attention and said, hey, I'd love to, hear you speak on it. And yeah, Last of Us 2 stays winning and folks stay mad. And I think there are a lot of valid criticisms of Last of Us 2, and I enjoy discussing the game generally, but there are also a lot of not valid criticisms of Last of Us 2 in the way of the characters it uses, the fact that it's like a very like women-centered story. There are a lot of people that were just salty about Last of Us 2 in general, and it really does go to show that the loud subset of the internet is not the entirety of people's perspectives, and both critically and commercially, Last of Us 2 is a huge success. And along with other awards, DICE released their nominees for the 24th Annual DICE Awards, and the show itself will be happening on April 8th of 2021. A total of 57 games have received nominations. I won't read through the entire of it, but I do want to highlight, of course, their nominees for Game of the Year. We have Animal Crossing New Horizons, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, and Last of Us Part 2. A very solid lineup. And of course, you already know that I think it should be Last of Us 2, so we'll just see what the folks who are responsible for voting have to say about that. Jumping into delays, because There's nothing this industry knows more than delays. Returnal has a new release date of April 30th, 2021. This was tweeted out by PlayStation, and it says, SIE and House Marquis have made the decision to move the release date in order to give the team extra time to continue to polish the game to the level of quality players expect from House Marquis. See you in April. Moving on to games, events, releases, and updates. There's an Animal Crossing update. It includes Festivali, which is happening February 15th, and essentially you are going to be heading around and collecting feathers for Pave. Pave is a peacock, and Pave be dancing like crazy, super colorful, like great energy, and you're collecting these feathers and returning them to Pave, in which you will get, quote, according to Nintendo, a passionate dance number in return. I don't know if there's going to be more to that. I kind of hope there's a little bit more than just a passionate dance number, but that is the main thing, and the plaza will have all this confetti, and there will be all these, like, celebrations and things. Other notable additions with this update, there are new reactions, so if you want to express your excitement for Festivali, you get a range of them. They are the Viva Festival Reaction Set, which you can purchase in-game. And we got reminded that the Mario update is coming in March. There's also an Animal Crossing Sanrio collaboration pack coming to the United States for the first time on March 26th. This is going to be exclusive to Target, and you will get these full amiibo cards, and they can be used in compatible games. Now, in New Horizons, all this really means is posters, but who doesn't like some posters? And also, if you're a big Sanrio fan, this is a huge deal. I'm personally actually not that into Sanrio. Like, there are certain characters that I think are pretty cute, but it's not my, like, character suite of choice personally. Starting February 1st, there will be Festivale clothing items available at the Able Sisters shop for a limited time so that you can get your little Festivale look on. And there's also new seasonal items, so you want to keep your eye out for these. There's going to be chocolate hearts, heart-shaped bouquets, all available from February 1st to February 14th, but there will also be Groundhog Day related items. That's specifically like a little Rossetti thing, like figurine, and big game celebration items. EA announces a Full Circle. This is a studio based in Vancouver that's going to be working on the next Skate game. There's a lot of Skate hype, so we'll, more on that as it develops, but that's an interesting kind of reminder of, hey, Skate, it's a thing, it's happening. We'll see how it is. Celeste Pico 8 gets a sequel. This comes over from Jordan Ullman at IGN, and this was sort of just tweeted out by the director of the game, Maddie Thorson, who says, to celebrate the 3rd anniversary of Celeste, we made a sequel to Celeste's classic Pico 8. You can play Celeste Classic 2 now on web or Pico 8. Pico 8's really hard. It's worth seeing through, but it's damn difficult. So, but that's just kind of a nice little option to jump in and play that, because Celeste is an awesome game. And Jordan Ullman hit us with another one. Playdead's next game is a multiplayer third-person science fiction adventure. I'm already here for it, because I will follow Playdead into the sun, frankly. We don't really know the details of this project, but this is sort of based on a job listing on the studio page that states that the entitled project will be a third-person science fiction adventure set in a remote corner of the universe. And honestly, whatever Playdead wants to do, let's let it happen. I thought Limbo was really good. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought Inside was an absolute masterpiece, instant classic. Loved it. Can't wait to see what they do next. Immortals Phoenix Rising's first major DLC is already out, so go hit that up if you're interested. If you know, you know. If you don't, then maybe you're just not that interested, and that's okay, because I also have not played this game. And lastly, you can expect more Hitman on the way. This comes from Kirk McKeon over at The Gamer. I hope I said Kirk's last name right, because I might not have, because I've never heard it said aloud. He spoke to executive producer Forrest Swart Out Large, who said, we're definitely going to be doing some DLC. This is in relation to Hitman 3, of course, but we haven't defined what that is. Hitman's interesting because there's definitely a lot there if you want to dig into it, but it's also sort of can be quick if you don't want to dig into those systems. For me, I'm here to do what you asked me to do, I get the job done, and I keep moving to the next mission. So I wouldn't personally be dipping into this, but I know a lot of people that just adore Hitman and all the different variations and options you get, so yeah, that's good news for them. Moving on to our For the Free section, the PS Plus games have finally been announced, and these games are Destruction All-Stars, Control Ultimate Edition, and Concrete Genie. I will say there are people that are of course salty over buying the Control Ultimate Edition and now it's here for free, but that's kind of the way of the world. It's the risk you take. That's a rough one, buddy. For me personally, I'm excited about this lineup. It's pretty good. Destruction All-Stars, it's the new thing. It's nice that it's free because admittedly, I wasn't super excited to roll the dice financially on something like that, but now I get to play it because it's already included in my PS Plus. Concrete Genie is this really cool indie game where you're sort of going around and you're like painting on the walls and the stuff comes to life. And it's sort of like it has this magical, whimsical, like cute vibe to it. And then Control, for those who don't know, Control was my game of the year for 2019, I believe it was the year. And I actually love this game so much. It's one of the only games, it actually might be the only game that I received for free through my job and then bought because I loved it that much. I had it for free on PC, like on some like work account, and then I'm like, no, I need to own this myself. So I got the steelbook of the game actually, which doesn't come with much. It was definitely more expensive, but they have these like art cards, and I just adore Control. I recommend that game to everybody. I love the hell out of that game. So if you have not played Control yet, you are in for a treat. Also, the Balan Wonderworld demo is out on Xbox, so you can check that out if you haven't already. And for the Shut Up and Take My Money section, we have that there are going to be Star Wars stamps coming this spring to USPS. So if you ever send out mail, you should go ahead and get those because they look pretty cool. And After Party is getting a limited run games release. Limited run games is always doing stuff, so I feel like I could highlight them every week on this. I try to only pick the ones with games that I feel a little bit more attached to or that I think are a little bit more exciting. Admittedly, I didn't like After Party as much as Oxenfree, but I did enjoy it. It really went some places. It surprised me towards the end. So yeah, I recommend that game for sure. And getting a physical copy of it, like I love physical media so much. Admittedly, I don't often go back and buy physical if I already happen to own it digitally, which is the case with After Party. But if you haven't gotten into it yet and it's been on your radar, this is a really cool way to pick it up. And they have like little cool extras that you can buy as well. And that is about it for this week's show. Be sure to rate it on any podcast service that you were listening to, or all of them. All of them is better, is more ideal. Follow on everything, even if you only listen on one thing. Head over to YouTube, give it a thumbs up. You can comment in there. You can @ me on Twitter or on social media in general. Handles Gameonysus across the board. Or you can email me at gameonysus@gmail.com. And as usual, thank you so much to the folks over on Patreon for helping support me, my work, and this show, making that possible. You too can be a patron. Just head over to patreon.com/Gameonysus. Got a whole bunch of different interesting tiers for y'all to check out. And I will see y'all here next time.